Now from Singapore, examining the business stories and economic trends reshaping the world. Talking Business Asia on BBC World News.
Since gaining independence from British rule 75 years ago, the Indian economy has transformed from protectionist to one closer to a free market economy. But Asia's third largest economy may be changing course again towards a future of economic independence. Will India's push to a self-reliant economy work, or will it do more harm than good? I'm Arunodaya Mukherjee, and welcome to this edition of Talking Business Asia. Atmanirbhar Bharat. In Hindi, that means self-reliant India. 2 years ago, the Indian government launched a new economic blueprint promising $25 billion to promote and grow local businesses. It's not the first time India has heard about self-reliance. It was a rallying cry during the country's fight for independence more than 7 decades ago.
31st July 1921. Mahatma Gandhi took a pledge to boycott foreign goods by burning English cloth. He said it was a tall ask, but it would enable India to demonstrate its self-reliance in the face of British rule. Gandhi encouraged Indians to weave khadi, the Indian homespun cloth, and give up British textiles. The spinning wheel and the textile itself became a symbol of Indian independence. Through most of its independent history, India adopted protectionist economic policies. But in the 1990s, the country opened up, ushering in the age of a free market economy. Now, India is pitching for self-reliance. The pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict further triggering the need to reduce reliance on external factors. The government claims the $25 billion spent on production-linked incentives will not only create millions of jobs, but boost domestic production to nearly $500 billion. But can India wean itself away from global supply chains that are cheaper and more reliable? And are India's ambitions for self-reliance at odds with its over-reliance on the international networks, especially China?
The Indian government is providing incentives to the manufacturing and industrial sector to make products at home. Getting big business on board is key for these policies to work. But business leaders admit that this may yet be the toughest challenge. To find out more, we spoke to Mr. Sajjan Jindal, chairman of the JSW Group, a $35 billion company and one of India's largest steel players. Is India on the path to self-reliance?
I think we are just kind of celebrating this year is our 75th year, and there has been a big desire from everybody in this country, and especially from our Prime Minister, that India must become self-reliant. We must grow our economy to a level where we don't need anything from anywhere, any part of the world.
You had mentioned in 2020 that net imports from China worth nearly $400 million were coming in, and you were looking to bring that down to zero in 2 years. That's 2022. Have you been able to do that?
At that time, it was a different situation because there was conflict on the borders, and there was passions in India was running very high against China, and we were all feeling that China, they would take some more area of India, and we must protect that. Every company in India and every person in India must show their resistance towards that move of China. So that really affected a lot of Indians, and I also got affected. And we took a decision that we will not import stuff from China. We really did that, and after that things became normal, then we again started back to our requirements.
So the dependence remains on China, you're saying?
It does. It does, especially in our industry. China is the largest in steel industry in the world. They produce nearly 50% of the steel. So they have a huge machine building capability. So, that's what we are trying to do in India also. So, but after that incident, what we are doing is that we are developing a lot of machine building activities in India, a lot of things which we were blindly getting from China. Now we are very, with a lot of awareness, we are buying from China. thinking that, okay, over next 2 or 3 years, we will replace it with domestic production.
We're looking at external factors affecting supply chains, currently talking in the context of the Russia-Ukraine war. How much of a concern is that then?
There is a serious concern on that, but you know, I have also come to realize of one thing, that China is a very mature economy. They are not, they're not very, how shall I say, they're not very emotional about things. Maybe Indians are a little more emotional than the Chinese. So they will not disrupt supply chain just because they have some other plans on the border. So, you know, I think the economic and the military, they keep separate, more or less. So there is no big threat, but it will be wise on our part, on the part of the Indian industry, to become self-reliant and don't rely on China.
But this, you know, talking about self-reliance, does it also in some way signal protectionism coming in?
If you talk about protectionism, then I would say protectionism is in Europe, protectionism is in USA. They have put 25% import duty on steel, on any product from the rest of the world. They will just put anti-dumping duty like this at the click of a button. And you know, though the world says that they are liberal, they are what is the word? They are pro world trade, but the reality is that there is a huge import duties on at least the products that we produce.
So then, you know, how does the Indian public then reconcile to the political leadership talking about self-reliance, Atmanirbhar Bharat as it translates into, and then, you know, people who are in action like you actually saying, look, we cannot reduce dependence. It's not possible right now. We're not nearly there.
You cannot become self-reliant overnight. It's a slow process. The direction is right. Today, what Prime Minister Mr. Modi is telling all the industry or the country as a whole as a concept that we have to become self-reliant. So I think everybody is moving into that direction. But it is taking time because in India nothing happens very quickly.
So how can Indian industry contribute to the growth and to this idea of self-reliance?
We have to use an Indian product in the industry. If I want to buy a product, then I must encourage the Indian industry to supply me. Even if it is a little more expensive, even if it is taking a little more time, you have to do that. So I think not everybody is willing to do that.
So Indian industry is not on the same page when it comes to this.
Yeah, in any case, can't be. You know, you can't have everybody thinking because I was watching some interview of some other industrialist and they were saying that no, my idea is we must make cheap and we must make for the domestic market, and if I have to buy from China, then I will buy from China. And I was kind of taken aback that, you know, this kind of sentiments are also existing in our country.
And in your conversations with the government, when you meet at high-level delegations, have you put forth your view?
This is discussed on a daily basis at the Planning Commission, Niti Aayog, with the Prime Minister himself, because he likes to understand, he meets us one-on-one and likes to understand what are the issues that you would like government to look at. So I think this.
And the suggestions are taken well?
And suggestions are taken extremely well.
And they're put into action?
Even criticism is taken extremely well.
And they're put into action?
And they're put into action, absolutely, immediately.
Can you give me an example of something that you suggested that actually was put into action?
I mean, it's difficult to quantify right now. I wouldn't remember, but there are many instances. For example, for making steel, we need coking coal, right? And India doesn't have coking, or India has, but we have not extracted that coking coal, and we rely on Australia, Canada, other parts of the world to bring that coal. Now, I went and mentioned it to Prime Minister that, sir, we need this coking coal to be extracted from Jharia area, which is a very crowded area, and a lot of people live there and very difficult to mine. But he has already put a mission coking coal in India, in Delhi.
What is that one big advantage that India has compared to other countries?
Our demography, our population, our size of the country, huge, big market, huge market.
And all of this can be harnessed to put it in the right direction.
It is being harnessed. As we are growing, the market is growing. The more steel I produce, the more I can sell. You know, so it's a huge advantage. No other country provides that kind of platform that China did for the Chinese steel producer, Chinese industry. India is doing now for Indian industry. It's a big plus.
Coming up next, in an interconnected world where global supply chains react faster and are more cost-effective for companies, is being self-reliant economically viable for India?
What do you see when you look at the surface? Just that, the surface. But dive deeper and new possibilities emerge. Essential intelligence from S&P Global takes you here, providing the data, risk assessment, and workflow solutions you need to plumb the wonders beneath. A better, more prosperous future awaits. It's yours for the seeking. S&P Global. Seek and prosper.
We start at Wimbledon.
Stand by for a moment of history.
The headlines keep breaking.
The Winter Olympics.
Now to cricket.
The Tour de France.
The Africa Cup of Nations.
The debate keeps raging.
They're still the team to beat.
England's batting is weak.
It's going quite well.
Definitely a lot of disappointment.
The results keep coming.
What was going through your mind?
It was absolutely amazing.
My heart rate was up. It's part of the game.
This is a really tasty tie.
It's one of a kind.
This is Sport Today.
For all the latest results, headlines and analysis, Sport Today on BBC World News.
Welcome back. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched his policy of a self-reliant India in the early days of the pandemic, the intention was to try and strengthen the economy so it could withstand global competition.
Incentives worth $18 billion were given across areas like electronics, automobiles, pharmaceuticals, textile, steel, and renewable energy. To boost its domestic defense sector, the government banned imports of over 300 items. India's space industry was opened up so private companies could participate. Bank lending policies have been revised to benefit small and medium businesses. They contribute around 33% to India's manufacturing output. And farmers have also been given more access to loans to re-energize India's agriculture sector, which employs nearly 50% of India's workforce.
But there have also been fears that this could signal a return of protectionist policies. This ambitious initiative also has its share of critics, including the former IMF chief for India, Josh Feldman. Mr. Feldman, does the concept of a self-reliant India work in reality?
If self-reliance means producing everything domestically and importing nothing, then self-reliance is a complete illusion. Even North Korea, which made self-reliance a central tenet of their economic policy, has realized that they need to import. And even the attempt to pursue a policy of complete self-reliance is very, very dangerous economically because it'll drive your country into poverty, as it did with North Korea. Now, most countries in Asia have a completely different notion of self-reliance. For them, self-reliance means developing manufacturing industry. And developing it how? Developing it by opening it up to foreign investment and to foreign trade and inviting firms, foreign and domestic, to come to the country and produce high quality goods for export. That policy has proved spectacularly successful. It's enabled East Asian countries such as South Korea and China to leap from poverty to riches in a single generation.
You mentioned India needs to make itself more attractive to foreign players, to foreign investors, to foreign trade. How do you then view the repeated increase in import tariffs that have been enforced by India over the last couple of years?
From 2014 to 2021, India has enacted no less than 3,200 tariff increases, affecting 70% of India's imports. This has pushed up India's average tariff rate from about 13% to about 18%, which is far higher than any of its East Asian competitors. Now, this has hurt India in two ways. First, and most obviously, it's hurt average Indians because it's pushed up prices and reduced living standards. And the other way that it's hurt India is that it's hurt India's ability to develop its manufacturing industry because the supplies that firms need to produce high quality products have become more expensive.
Has India been successful in capturing the market, or rather space in the market, that has been looking to move beyond China?
Unfortunately, success has been very limited so far. Since the global financial crisis of 2008, China has given up about $150 billion in market share of labor-intensive goods. Of that $150 billion, India has only been able to capture about 10% of that.
To talk in the specific context of India, to boost domestic production, as you're talking about, which is very essential, the Indian government has issued several production-linked initiatives worth billions of dollars. These are sector-specific to help. Do you think that is enough?
No, I don't. I completely agree with the way you phrased it. Subsidies are always helpful, but they're not enough. Many countries have tried subsidies and found that the subsidies fail. What India needs to do is it needs to reverse its inward turn and open up the country more to foreign trade and foreign investment. It also needs to level the playing field so that firms, both foreign and domestic, and all domestic firms can compete on an equal basis. It needs to make sure that when the government gives a policy commitment or enacts a policy, that policy is maintained for years and even decades so that people can have stability and assurance. And it also, very, very importantly, needs to make sure that when a rule is announced, the enforcement is clear and predictable.
All right, Mr. Josh Feldman, we'll leave it there then. Thank you very much for your views on Talking Business Asia.
We've spoken to a business leader, we've spoken to a critic, but what does self-reliance mean for the leaders of tomorrow? So to discuss that, I'm here at one of India's premier business schools, the Indian School of Business at the Hyderabad campus, and with me are young students who will help navigate this entire concept of self-reliance. So thanks for being with us, guys. I'll start with you. What, in your opinion, is self-reliance?
This is a new term we've been hearing for the last 2 years.
And hearing
think.
a lot of.
A lot of it for the last 2 years, ever since COVID. It's a good term, and I come from an industry where I can say we are very self-reliant. I come from the hospitality industry. But I am not very sure if, as a country, we can at any point completely call ourselves self-reliant. I don't think we have the right structures in places yet, the foundations. I don't
But can we get to that, or do you think
we can, but I feel it's going to take a lot of change of mindset, many changes in the bureaucracy. We have a long way to go. We could, I'm not saying we can't, we've come a long way from independence here.
And we are celebrating 75 years of independence, but Shreya, you are very optimistic.
Yes, it looks like an unpopular opinion here, but I think the kind of talent that we have, the kind of resources that we have, I think we need to be able to channel all of that in the right direction. There are raw materials, we're just not able to process it right at the moment. We have the right kind of talent. The CEOs across the world right now, most of them have Indian origins. And as a country that's as progressive as ours, and we're talking to young minds, as you like to call us, I think if we have the right kind of optimism, and we need the correct mindset to be able to execute it.
So could you tell me a few examples of where we've started doing this?
So a lot of things, pharmaceutical ingredients, right? I understand that our reliance on China is a little more there, but in terms
Quite more, I think, isn't it? Or a little would be...
I'm trying to be optimistic. Yes, but the idea is the way healthcare has transformed in the country. Out of the 100 unicorns at the moment, about 6+ are healthcare focused. The kind of schemes, it's all about getting all of the resources the governments have, the different yojanas, the way to qualify for different yojanas. It's all
By yojana, you mean policies?
The policies, right? The policies. It's all there.
Amrita, what would you say?
Yeah, I actually somewhere fall in between the two as far as what I feel self-reliance and where India is coming from. India has come a long way. Like, you have the richest of the world in India, but then most of the population that you have...
a huge economic divide. You have the privileged class, but a huge economic divide, right?
It's economic divide, there's cultural divide, there's a lot of things. India is very unique in its way. So self-reliance is just not about making decisions or there's policy making. There is an inherent mindset that comes in picture.
So as leaders of tomorrow who will be joining the workforce, and Tanvi, if you could come in on this, what would be the things that you would do to help India in that direction?
We've seen a lot of these small and medium businesses come up over the last 2-3 years, especially during COVID.
We've seen how they've transformed local businesses, the way we transact, the way we do a lot of things. So I think going ahead, if there's something that I believe we as a country need to focus on, and in various industries. So for example, I come from fintech, and we've had a lot of private companies solely focus on getting access to capital for small and medium businesses. India's at the forefront of digital payments, for example. The world over wants to copy our systems. So I feel like in some places, we've had structures that have helped us get to prime position. And if those structures can be replicated, if that dedicated focus, like how Shreya said, can be replicated, I think we can be self-reliant really soon.
Rohini, challenges. Where are some of the challenges? We've got some good ideas, some good solutions as well, some proposed solutions.
I think I said it earlier when we were talking. One thing that I feel that the human capital itself, we have a huge human capital, but I don't think they have the right skills to understand the concept of self-reliance. I'm sure we can be self-reliant when we're able to, garner the trust in people that Indian brands also give quality. Right now, unfortunately, and the same thing with China also, it's not, we all know China quality might not be the best all the time. Why are we buying it? Lesser money.
One issue that I also want to address is, looking at all of this through the gender lens. Women's participation in India's labor force has consistently gone down over the years. Why aren't we seeing more women? Is that a concern, Tanvi?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the main concerns as someone who's graduating from business school. Going into a workforce with a lot of dreams, with a lot of ambition. You want to be able to say that, yes, in 10 years I'm going to be here, and in 15 years I'm going to be here. And then you see some of your role models who were in the same position, and suddenly they're not doing these things. And I think it really just boils down to the kind of support systems our companies offer right now.
I was the only developer surrounded by 8 men. If they give a design, their design would take the preference. Mine, they would hear me out of general courtesy, but I had to be 10 times better in the way I shape my story for me to convince it.
This is from my experience again for 12 years. I honestly didn't hire women in my restaurant, and there was a reason. Compliances were much higher the minute I had to hire even a single lady. The number of legal compliances were much, much higher. So, the cost of getting that done.
Discouraging for employers.
Yes, there is. So, as an employer, I found it easier. I had to give them separate accommodation then. Imagine I had a single woman, whereas all the men, I would put them in a dormitory kind of a place. The cost for me increased.
I'm just going to get one final comment from all of you. If you had the political establishment sitting in front of you, what would be the one thing that you would tell them?
As a future entrepreneur, I would just want the government to really improve access to capital, access to finance. For people with smaller endeavors, maybe not as much, may not have as much concrete data backing them up yet.
Focus on education, the right education, and make it accessible to all, make it compulsory for all.
There are a lot of things that I studied in engineering which I'm not using, which I learned through experience. Let's start bringing those into your subject so that we start thinking in that mindset.
Digitization and ease of doing business. Country's done a lot on that digitization front already. Take it, healthcare, finance, fintech payments, all of that. Great going. We need to improve the ease of doing business in the country.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much. It was a conversation that threw up a lot of ideas. There is optimism, there is cautious optimism, but one thing that people felt unanimously was that there is potential. It just needs to be harnessed. India is looking to pitch self-reliance repeatedly. That's it then on this edition of Talking Business Asia. Thanks very much for watching.